Can you introduce yourself? Yeah, myself, senior test automation engineer. I'm having 4 years of experience total, so including manual and automation testing. So I have a knowledge on the Java language with the Selenium in the web automation, and by using the framework TestNG for the unit testing, uh, and also have the approach of behavior driven development like the BDD way. Also I know that, like by using the cucumbers, and I have some basic knowledge on continuous integration on the Jenkins, like how we can build our test cases and run through the Jenkins. So and coming to my roles and responsibilities, so my roles and responsibilities like writing the test cases, creating the test scenarios, and preparing a test documentation, and uploading on the we can say that test rail automation tool is there, a test management tool is there. Over there we write our test cases, and also sending the reports, the reports extend report I'm using, so that reports to the client. Also uh, working with the peers to help to understand them if they are new to the system. So yes, yeah, that's all. Okay, so can you tell me, suppose you are very new to the system and you don't know about the requirement thing, and it is not in agile methodology, there is no requirement clearly mentioned. So what kind of testing you gonna perform then? So if the requirement is not clearly mentioned or documented, since we are following agile methodology, so there is the disadvantage, we can say that the requirements are not documented so clearly. So we can use the exploratory testing. So in this way, like without, we don't have the formal requirement listed, we can do the exploratory testing. That is the best way to understand the application and get a hands on to the functionality, like how exactly the application or the software is working. And in that way we can understand and find the gaps if there is anything missing, or maybe like what kind of functionality and the module is built. So based on that exploratory testing, we can do these things. Consider you have a logout button, or maybe the you have to open the browser, and every time you have to use that command. So all the logout button functionality and the navigation link, like opening the browser, that all thing where exactly you are writing the or locating the web elements for that. Can you tell me? Yes, so the more for common functionality which are we can use every time when the script is run by us, so that things can be done in the base class itself, like opening a browser and all things that can be done once the construct we can write inside the setup method is there. So I mean, we can name anything, but in the setup method we can easily write the opening or navigating the links that can open the browser. That can be thing we can write inside the setup methods, and then we can create one more a tear down method where we can closing the browser and logout functionality things we can be add over there, that web elements. So we can create a more generic framework like that. So it will not something which we can say that we can make it as a reusable. Okay, so consider one scenario. Suppose in your teams there are four members are there, four testers are there, and suddenly all of them are on unplanned leave. Okay, you are the only one who is going to join the next day. I mean, and rest of the three people will not there. So how do you handle this situation? How you gonna react to this situation? Okay, so if this situation arises where like all of my peers are on the unplanned leave and I am only the tester, so in this situation, first of all, I will ask my team lead or manager to get the tickets which is on high priority, suppose, and if some tickets are already there in my queue, which is in high priority, then I will first finish my work, and then based on as a teamwork I will support other team members ticket as well. but if in but if it is in high priority and customer or the client needs to be tested as soon as possible, then I can pick those things. Otherwise uh, we can leave it as it is, and once the resource will come next day, then we can manage those things. But if anything is in urgent and like we have to done in today's sessions, like when the all of the peers are not present, they are on unplanned leave, so we can take their ticket as well and make the priority. So in this way I can manage. Otherwise if they are on maybe next 2 3 days on unplanned leave, then again I have to sit with my manager or the team lead to discuss what all the test tickets having a priority. Based on that I will discuss with them and make the priority of these tickets. So in this way I can manage, so that it won't affect the as an entire team the entire work as well. And nobody should the client or customer can ask a question like that. Okay. So can you tell me, I'm asking about the Java question, so just give me what is your view, like how can we call the default constructor from the parameterized constructor? Suppose I'm calling from the parameterized constructor, and I have to call first default constructor then parameterized constructor. So how do I achieve this? Calling from default parameterized constructor to default constructor, we can use this keyword. Like suppose I have a constructor which has one argument, so we can call it as a parameterized constructor. So inside the parameterized constructor, the first line we will use the this keyword, and that this keyword will definitely going to call the default constructor, and whatever the things will be there in the default constructor, that will be execute first, and then our parameterized constructor will get called. So in this way it will like we can call the default constructor from the parameterized constructor. If in case we are not using the this keyword, so we cannot call the parameter default constructor, because the JVM will not accept it and it will throw the error. But when we write this keyword at the first line of the parameterized constructor, then JVM will definitely take it and call the default constructor. What is the use of static keyword in main? You are writing public static void main, right? So what is the use of static keyword? So we all know that like public static void main, the main method is basically a static method. So what happen is, instead of suppose we have to call any method, so we have to use class name and we have to create the object, and then we have to call that method, right? Object dot method name. But when we make our main method as a static method, then we don't have to create the object. So what happen is JVM directly invoke this particular main method without creating the object of that particular class. And we also know that like a static main method is something the entry point. So without creating the object, because creating the object and then calling the method is somewhere wastage of time and the memory, because you have to create the object, then that object will be go into the heap area, right? So this all thing actually the wastage of memory and the time. So that's why this static keyword in the main, which help us to not creating the object of a class, and directly JVM can invoke that main method. Okay, so that is the main purpose of writing the static keyword in the main. Okay, next question is, can we make private access specifier inside the interface? So suppose I have interface, and can I make the variables and the method as a given private access specifier? Is this possible? Making the interface variable and method as private will not work, since because the very basic concept we all know that in the OOPS is like when we make certain thing variable or method as in private, then that particular class can access those properties like variable and the method that cannot be accessible outside the class, right? So interface is something where we are declaring just the methods, right? We are not creating the body of that method, but we are going to use that particular interface method in some classes by using the keyword implement, right? So so in that cases, suppose whatever the method I have created, I have to use in some other class, and if my interface made itself, like the method made itself is private, so it won't allow us, it will give us the compile time errors, right? So we have to make sure that like in the interface all the methods or the variables is we can say that it should be public only, because if you make it private or the protected, then that things will not work properly. So yeah, and in the interface it implicitly it's declared the access modifier as a public only. Okay, so let's come to the Selenium questions. So, how was your experience working with the or handling with the drop down list boxes? Can you tell me what is the syntax and how you're gonna use it? Yeah, so working with the drop down, we have to create the object of select class. Like we have select whatever the name of the object equals new select, and we can pass in the open and close bracket like whatever the locators value we have to pass for the that drop down. And then we have three different methods provided by the select class. With the help of that we can use to locate the particular values present inside the drop down. Like first one is like select by visible text. Based on the text we can go ahead and find the locators and the values for that. And the second way is we can use the select by index. So based on the index also we can find out and locate that particular values. And the third one is we have a select by value. So based on the value also we can handle this entire drop down thing. So these are the three ways we can work with handling the drop down. Yeah. Okay, can you tell me the program? Just give me one way, whatever the way you know, like how we can remove the white spaces in a string. Suppose, one string is there, and the string contains the white spaces. I mean the spaces. Like uh, India is my country, so India is, there is a gap between India and is my country. So in each word there is a gap, right? So I just don't want that gap and just remove that gap. So how can you implement this code? Okay, so we can remove the white spaces from a particular string. There is a method called inside the string class. We have one method, replace all. So based on the that method we can just replace all the white spaces whatever present, and with nothing. Okay, so in this way we can remove the white spaces. So the program will be like a string str, and the string value will be like India is my country. So in each word there is an space, right? So what I can do is I will create one variable like string no space string equals, and whatever the object I have created for string like India is my country, so string dot replace all, and inside the bracket we have to provide two values. One is whatever the space is there, so for that we can use in double quotes 2 for backward slash and s small s. So this denote that like we are indicating for the space. and the second one, and then we have to use comma, and then in double quotes we will write nothing, and there is no space in between. So what happened, whatever the space will be there, that can be replaced by with nothing. Okay, so this is the one way we can remove all the white spaces which are present in the particular string. Okay, can you tell me the what is the difference between thread.sleep and implicit wait? Thread.sleep and the implicit wait both are act as an wait only. But in thread.sleep, what happened? This is a static wait, and implicit wait is something which we call it as a dynamic wait as well. In thread.sleep, what happened is whatever the seconds, milliseconds which we have provided for a particular things to be wait, then what happened? Once the entire wait is over for like whatever the millisecond wait, like 5 millisecond wait I have provided, after that only whatever the operation will be there, that can be performed with the help of thread.sleep. But in the implicit wait, what happens, suppose I have provided the wait of 5 seconds, and the particular web page is loading, and that loaded the particular element within a 3 seconds. So what happened, within a 3 second your execution will get done, and it will move to the next command in your script. So this thing can be achieved with the help of implicit wait. But in thread.sleep, what happened, it will just wait for entire 5 seconds, and then only it will jump to the next command. So we can say that the implicit wait reduce the timing, because if the particular element, whatever the element we want to load that thing, if it is loaded whatever the time we have provided before that only, then it will be we can say that it's a faster as compared to thread.sleep, right? So yeah, that is the difference, like one is the static and another one is the dynamic wait. Okay, fine. Can you tell me, like I have to perform the right click operation? Okay, so how do I do that? So whatever the mouse and the keyboard events which we have to provide, which we have to use, for that we have a actions class. So we have to create the object of actions class and passing the driver reference what we have created, like driver equals to new Chrome driver or Firefox driver. So that driver instance we have to provide, and then like the way we are locating the elements, like web element equals driver dot find by element, and based on by id or maybe the x path, we are going to find out the element on the web page which we have to perform the right click operation, right? And then what we'll do, whatever the object we have created for actions class, that object dot context click method is present, which will be helpful for clicking performing the right click operation. Okay, for double click we have a double click method, and for right click we have a context click method is there. So whatever the element we have located, that element needs to be passed inside the context click method, and then dot perform it. So in this way, like we can do the right click operation. And suppose we have to perform more than one action, okay, then we have to use build dot perform for multiple operation needs to be performed together for the action thing. And if it is a one single operation we have to perform, then we can use the perform only. Suppose I have one checkbox and I have to verify that, like whether the checkbox is checked or not. So how do I achieve it? Is there any way? Yes, so we if we have to check like the checkbox is displayed or not, we have is selected method is there which returns a boolean value like true or false, right? So based on that, like we can check like if our particular checkbox is checked or not checked. So for that, first of all we have to locate that checkbox area with the help of, I mean, the same way like from driver dot find by elements, and whatever the value we have to provide. Once we get that web element, then what we have to do, that web element dot is selected method is there, so that will give us the boolean value, like if the checkbox is created, I mean it is checked, then it will give us the true value, and if it is not checked, then it will give us the false value. So in this way we can verify that like the checkbox is displayed or not, or checked or not. Okay, let's move to the some Cucumber questions. Okay, just basics I will ask you. Yes, sure. Can you let me understand what is the purpose of step definition file in Cucumber? Yes, sure. So the main purpose of the step definition file is like what happen is, in step definition file in Cucumber we used to segregate the feature file. So we have a feature file, so which is written in a Gherkin language, so which is also called as share language. So in like feature file, what happen is we just write a normal English language where we have a the template or the pattern is like given when and then, like this format is there, which we write the scenarios and the test cases, right? So this can be readable easily, anyone, the non-functional guy. But um, the step definition file is exactly it is whatever the given when and then is written. So every step we can say that each step of the feature file that can be converted as an step definition method, right? So I have one feature file, and the given when and then these four lines are there. So for given there is one method, for when there is a one method in the step definition file. So the mapping of feature file and the we can say that step definition file are there. So this is the main purpose of like a step definition file. So what happened, whatever the things which is written in a Gherkin language is understandable by the business people easily, but whatever the things written in the step definition file, that is written in a programming language like .NET, Java, or maybe the Ruby, anything. So that can be understandable more on the test automation engineers, right? So both the things are the same only, but what technical things are written in the step definition file, and the basic and generic English language, we can say that not English language, but a normal layman, non-technical person can easily understand what exactly this test case is doing based on reading the feature file. So that is the main purpose of step definition file. What is the real use cases of the behavior driven development methodology, like in the real world, like why we use the BDD approach and all? Yeah, as I said, like the behavior driven development is more centric, or we can say that like the stakeholder than the clients and all. Those who are the non functional people, who can, by reading those things, whatever the things written in the feature file, that can be easily understandable by them. That's why this like it's a simple text, right? So that can be easily understandable by them. So that's why this behavior driven development, we most of the time we can use these things. So the involvement, we can say that will be more like the business analysts or the QA developers or the support team. Everyone like they can give their contribution more easily by understanding the way of the BDD, entirely BDD works. So that's why like the real use case, we can say that, of BDD. Can you tell me what is the limit for maximum number of scenarios that can be included in feature files? Maximum number of scenarios we can add in feature files. So I guess there is no such hard rule for like how many number of scenarios we can include in one feature file. It is totally depend on the project to project or maybe the organization level how they follow, but the basic or maybe the advisable option is to uh, just limit the maximum 10 scenarios in one feature file, and based on that you can work upon. So yeah, so it's just a general practice, we can say that, where we can have a maximum of 10 scenarios in one feature file, but yeah, there is no hard rule for that. What is the use of example keyword in Cucumber? Example keyword is basically we use like when we have to specify like value for each parameter, like for username and password, when we have to provide a value, that time we can use the example keywords. And when we use the example keyword, we should always follow like we have a scenario, right? But instead of scenario, we have to use the scenario outline keyword. That needs to be followed with the along with the example keyword to providing or specifying the value for that parameters. So yeah, that is the use. Can you tell me what is the starting point of execution for feature file, like from where the feature file started? So when we are working with like when we are working with Selenium and working with BDD, so what happened is like we have a test runner class is there. So in that we have to specify, like we have to use certain annotations like cucumber option glues are there, so that can be with the help of those things we mention in the test runner class, and from there it is the starting point, we can say that, of the feature files to be get executed. So yeah. Okay, so can you tell me the one query, like I have to find out the second maximum salary from the employee table, so how do I do that? Okay, so there are multiple ways we can do like finding out the second maximum salary. So first one is like we have a column name like employee name, and then we have another column as salary. So what the command is like, select name comma max, we have to use the aggregate function, and then salary inside that aggregate function as salary from employee table, where salary, and we have to use the operator which is less than, and again we have to use the nested query. In that we have to write the command select max salary from the employee, and then we can say that like we will get that the second maximum salary from the table. So suppose you have to find out the third maximum salary of a from the table, so the syntax or the query will be the same, only once again you have to add like from employee where salary, and again we have to use a less than operator, and again we have to write the same query like select max salary from the employee. So I know we are nesting uh, the three times the same queries, but in this way we can get the second maximum salary. And there is one another way where we have to also take care of the employee, their salary should uh, not be the same, like it should be a distinct value, unique value. So for that we can write the same query like select star from employee where salary, we need all the employees whose salary equals, and then again we have to use nested query here like select distinct keyword we will use for the uniqueness from the employee, and we will use the order by, and the salary we have one function limit function that we have to use here like limit n minus 1 comma 1. So we need one record for like n minus 1 will give us the second maximum salary of from the table. So in this ways, like there's another way also, like but I know this thing. So in this way we can have a second maximum salary of an employee. Okay, my last question is, can you tell me what is velocity in agile and how do we calculate that? Velocity. Oh, okay. So velocity is something like it is the we are measuring like the how much amount of work as a team we did like in the particular one single sprint. So this is something like the metrics we can say that, where we want to get the data like how the entire team is performing, how many number of user story points user are going to take in a one sprint, and uh, how much they are able to achieve it. So uh, we can just calculate the velocity. Like suppose we have a 10 sprint done already, okay, and we want to improve on our velocity thing in the upcoming sprint. So what we have to do, we have to calculate the number of user story point will be for all the 10 we can say that the sprints, right? So in all the 10 sprint, whatever the user story point will be assigned, okay, that user story point divide by the number of sprint you have given already. So suppose I have a total of 110 user story point in all the 10 sprint. So the equation will be 110 divided by 10. So whatever the average will get calculated, that value we can consider for each sprint as an velocity. Okay, so suppose right now like we are getting some less number of value, and scrum master is thinking to make it more improvable. So that can be achieved based on these factors or the matrix, like calculating the velocity and all, and based on that we can improvise this thing and in the future sprint. So yeah, that's the way we can calculate the velocity. Okay, thanks. That's it from my side.